In the rugged north of England, where mist clings to the hills and the wind carries the scent of ancient stone, stands Chillingham Castle. For more than 800 years, it has watched the borders between England and Scotland, a sentinel of war, peace, and something else that never quite left. The castle began as a monastery in the 12th century, a place of prayer and quiet devotion. But when England's wars with Scotland ignited, peace gave way to power. The monks were replaced by soldiers, the chapel became an armory, and Chillingham rose as a fortress, one of the first lines of defense in centuries of bloodshed. By the time King Edward I, known as Longshanks, rode north in the year 1298 to confront William Wallace, the castle had become a bastion of English strength. He and his men camped within its walls, their fires glowing against the moorland dark. The echoes of their boots still seem to linger there, 8 centuries later. Stone by stone, Chillingham grew. Towers, battlements, dungeons. It became not just a castle, but a keeper of memories, both noble and terrible. For every feast in the great hall, there was a battle on the fields beyond. For every toast, a cry. And though the centuries changed its purpose, one thing never did: its hunger to remember. The castle's position near the Scottish border made it a constant witness to war. Raiders swept across the moors, torching villages, stealing livestock, and taking prisoners. Chillingham's thick walls offered shelter to the English soldiers who defended those lands, and prison to those who attacked them. During the long years of border conflict, it was said that the stones themselves grew stained with grief. The screams of battle echoed through the courtyards, and at night the wounded were brought inside, some to heal, many not. By the 16th century, peace had begun to creep cautiously back across the land, but the castle remained alert, its gates still heavy, its dungeons still deep. It housed the noble Grey family, whose name would intertwine forever with the legends that followed. They added grandeur to the fortress, sweeping staircases, tapestries, and windows carved to capture light. But beneath the beauty, the old darkness lingered. The soldiers were gone, but the memories of their cruelty remained. And where memories persist long enough, sometimes they find a voice. Those who stayed in Chillingham began to whisper of strange sounds after midnight, chains that moved on their own, soft footsteps in empty halls, the feeling that the castle, restless and ancient, had begun to remember out loud. Over the centuries, Chillingham saw kings, knights, nobles, and prisoners pass through its gates. It survived rebellion, siege, and silence. By the time the modern age arrived, its stones were cracked and its legends old, yet still alive. Visitors who came for history found something else waiting. The air inside the castle felt heavy, charged with the past. Every corridor seemed to breathe. Every corner seemed to watch. Guides spoke of ghostly lights flickering near the tower, of laughter that drifted from rooms long sealed, of a strange chill that clung to the chapel steps. But among all these whispers, one story stood apart, the tale of the Blue Boy, a spirit whose cries once kept even the bravest guests awake. For years, those who slept in the castle's pink room were awakened at the same hour, the stroke of midnight, by the faint sound of sobbing. Sometimes, a small blue light shimmered near the wall, growing brighter until it vanished, with a cry. When restoration began in the early 20th century, workmen discovered a sealed cavity behind that very wall. Inside were the bones of a child and scraps of blue cloth. The light has faded now, but some say the sorrow remains. They called him the Blue Boy, though no one knew his name. His story is as much sorrow as it is mystery. Some say he was a child of noble birth, hidden away during one of the castle's sieges. Others whisper that he was a prisoner's son, sealed in the wall so his cries would never betray those in hiding. Whatever the truth, his spirit lingered for centuries. Guests who slept in the Pink Room often woke to the same sound, a faint sob, as if someone were lost behind the stone itself. Then a soft blue light would appear, trembling at first, then bright enough to bathe the whole chamber in an otherworldly glow. Those who saw it spoke of overwhelming sadness, not fear, but grief so deep it felt alive. Some said the light moved toward the ceiling before vanishing, leaving the air colder than before. When his bones were discovered, the room fell silent. The cries stopped, but the sense of presence never left. Guests still report waking suddenly in the night, feeling a small hand touch their shoulder, or hearing a single sob before dawn. The castle staff say it is not a haunting, but a remembrance. The walls simply sigh for what they once held. Not all of Chillingham's ghosts cry for help. Some wander for love, or what remains of it. The most graceful among them is Lady Mary Berkeley, whose story drifts through the halls like perfume long faded. Lady Mary was once mistress of the castle, married to Lord Grey, but her husband betrayed her, running away with her own sister, leaving Mary to raise their child alone. She stayed at Chillingham dignified, heartbroken, and forever waiting for the sound of a horse returning up the drive. Visitors say she still walks those same corridors at twilight, her silk gown whispering against the stone. Sometimes the faint scent of lilac follows her. Sometimes a sigh. She is not feared. Those who sense her presence describe it as gentle, sorrowful, protective. It is said that if you pause quietly on the staircase near her portrait, you might feel a cool breeze and hear the faint sound of her dress brushing past. Lady Mary does not haunt. She endures. Her love for the life she lost seems stronger than death itself. And in Chillingham, love and grief often walk together. There are other figures, too, who drift through the castle's long nights. Soldiers in shadowed armor seen marching across the courtyard, though the gates have long been closed. A whispering presence in the chapel, where prayers are sometimes heard in a language older than English. Those who have stayed overnight describe hearing faint footsteps on the stairs, the rustle of chainmail, the low murmur of men on watch. One guest swore he heard the clank of a sword being drawn, followed by the sound of marching boots, fading into nothing. Sometimes voices call out names no one recognizes. Sometimes torches flicker as if someone unseen has passed too close. And yet there is no malice in these visitations, only duty. Perhaps these soldiers, bound to their last command, still guard the castle from enemies that time itself has forgotten. Their loyalty has outlived their lives. And on certain misty nights when the moon is high, their silhouettes can be seen upon the walls, keeping watch, as they always have. At the far end of the castle lies the small whispering chapel, a room so still that every breath seems to echo. The ceiling arches high above, carved from ancient stone, and the air there feels colder, older, as if it remembers what prayers once sounded like. Visitors who sit quietly within those walls often report hearing faint voices, not words exactly, but the rhythm of speech, the hush of someone unseen whispering a blessing or a warning. Some say the whispers belong to monks who once prayed here before the castle became a fortress. Others believe they are soldiers, begging forgiveness for what they did when mercy was forgotten. The staff tell stories of candles that flare without wind, and of soft footsteps moving toward the altar when no one is there. Yet even with its chill, the chapel feels peaceful, not haunted by rage but by reflection. It is said that if you leave an offering, a coin, a flower, even a whispered promise, the voices fall silent for a while, as though listening, as though grateful. But beneath this quiet sanctuary lies something far darker, a place where prayers went unanswered. Down a narrow spiral staircase, the air grows thick with damp and stone dust. The walls close in, the torchlight flickers, and the whispers fade into a heavier sound, silence that listens back. This is the beginning of Chillingham's lower chambers, where history takes a darker turn. Few who visit forget the feeling that greets them there. The steps seem to lead not downward but backward, into a time when cruelty was a craft. During the border wars, these dungeons were used to hold prisoners, sometimes for days, sometimes for years. Their cries would echo up through the floors into the great hall above. It was said that the lords of the castle would dine to the sound of their enemies' suffering, raising their glasses to victory. Even now, the air feels heavy with that memory. Guides often pause here, letting the silence speak for itself. Visitors describe the weight of unseen eyes, the smell of cold iron, the sense that the past is waiting just beyond the next turn of the stair. And at the bottom of that stairway waits the torture chamber, the heart of the castle's darkness. The torture chamber of Chillingham Castle remains one of the most notorious in Britain. Within its walls, prisoners were broken in every way the imagination of war could devise. The room is small, its ceiling low, its stones blackened by centuries of flame and blood. Among the relics that remain are the rack, the spiked chair, and the Iron Maiden, instruments designed to stretch, tear, and silence. Rusted chains still hang from the walls, their ends worn smooth by restless hands. Guides say that when the wind moves through the narrow window slit, it sounds almost like a moan. Others insist that it is no trick of the air, that those who once screamed here still do. During tours, visitors have felt hands brush their arms, as if pleading. Some have heard whispers in their ears, single words they could not quite understand. Cameras falter, torches dim. It is not anger that fills the chamber. It is suffering that has forgotten how to end. And above, the castle listens, remembering every cry. Few places in England carry a history as cruel as the torture chamber of Chillingham Castle. The air is still thick with the weight of centuries, and the walls seem to sweat with memory. When torches burn low, their light catches on iron, chains, and stains so dark no amount of time can fade them. The rack was the centerpiece, a wooden frame wound by heavy wheels. Prisoners were tied hand and foot, stretched slowly until tendons snapped like twine. The pain was meant not to kill, but to extract names, secrets, and loyalty to the English crown. Beside it stands the spiked chair, its seat bristling with short iron points. Victims were forced to sit, sometimes for hours, while the fire beneath was stoked to warm the metal. The screams echoed up the stairs into the banquet hall, where they mingled with music and laughter. In the corner hangs a cage of rusted bars, barely large enough for a child. The condemned were shut inside and hoisted to the ceiling, left to die of thirst while the castle dined below. Some cages still bear scratches where fingernails once clawed for freedom. Guides say that when the castle sleeps, those chains tremble faintly, as if something unseen still struggles against them. Every torment requires a hand to deliver it, and at Chillingham that hand belonged to the executioner. His name has long been lost to time, but his shadow remains. They say he lived within the castle walls, fed and kept apart, his only duty to inflict suffering. He wore a leather hood, not for disguise, but to protect his face from blood. In the corner of the chamber stands his stool, worn smooth where he once sat sharpening blades, humming softly to himself. Visitors often report hearing that same hum, low and tuneless, just before entering the room. One legend says he was not cruel by nature, only numbed by duty. The ghosts of his victims would gather around him each night, whispering their pain until his mind broke. When he died, the guards refused to bury him on consecrated ground, fearing his spirit would curse them. But some claim he never left. A few visitors have seen a tall shape standing by the rack, watching quietly. His presence feels neither kind nor hateful, only weary, as though bound to the task for eternity. And perhaps he is, for Chillingham does not easily release those who served its darkness. It is said that buildings remember, and none remember quite like Chillingham. The walls drink in sound and sorrow, holding them like secrets. When the night wind moves through the old stones, it sometimes carries a sigh that seems almost human. Modern visitors speak of a pressure in the air, a heaviness that tightens the chest. Some cannot stay long inside the chamber, others feel drawn to it, as if the castle itself calls to them. One woman fainted after hearing what she swore were words whispered directly behind her. "Stay with us." Investigators who have brought instruments to measure the atmosphere find spikes of energy that defy logic. Recordings capture low moans, rhythmic knocks, and a single sob that repeats like memory, trying to retell itself. Skeptics leave silent, their confidence unsettled. Believers leave pale, certain that the suffering below still breathes through the walls. And above, the castle keeps its own counsel, proud, unrepentant, magnificent, and haunted by what it has witnessed. For Chillingham Castle does not merely hold ghosts, it is one. Above the dungeon, the castle breathes differently. The air is cold but not dead. A pulse seems to move through the corridors, as if the building itself listens. Guides lead visitors through narrow passageways, their torches flickering against walls thick with age. The shadows stretch and fold like memory, never still. Those who climb from the torture chamber often describe a strange calm, as though the castle offers a kind of uneasy truce after what lies below. Yet the calm is fragile. Sometimes a chill wind brushes past, though every window is closed. Sometimes footsteps echo ahead, though the guide has stopped speaking. At night, the upper rooms creak and sigh. Guests have heard doors open softly, as if someone were pacing just outside their rooms. A faint child's laughter is said to drift from the east wing, and the scent of roses fills the air before vanishing. Candle flames bend sideways, curtains stir, whispers rise from the stone floors, and always the sense of being watched, not in menace, but in melancholy. Chillingham does not wish to harm its visitors. It only wants to be remembered. And so each sound, each flicker of light, feels like the castle's own sigh, a greeting from the other side of history. Today, Chillingham Castle stands restored, its walls strong again, its history proudly displayed for all who dare to step inside. But no amount of renovation can erase what it has seen. Every stone seems to hum with echoes of the past, with laughter, agony, and prayer layered one atop another like dust. By daylight it is magnificent, banners hanging in the great hall, sunlight streaming through narrow windows, the scent of polish and candle wax replacing the old rot. Yet beneath that splendor lies an unspoken agreement. When night falls, the castle belongs to its ghosts. Public tours begin in the courtyard, where the guide's voice trembles slightly as they describe centuries of hauntings. Visitors hold lanterns, their faces pale in the glow. Each step forward feels like trespass, each echo a heartbeat from another time. They pause before the pink room, where the blue boy once cried, then descend the spiral stair to the dungeon. The air grows colder, heavier. The laughter fades. Someone always shivers. Someone always looks back. And before long, everyone understands history is not what ended here. It is what never left. For those brave enough, the castle offers overnight stays. Guests are given keys to rooms older than most nations, and told with a smile that if they hear footsteps or whispers in the dark, they should not be alarmed. The ghosts, after all, are said to be friendly, curious, perhaps even welcoming. Many return home with stories they cannot explain. A woman from London awoke to see a figure standing at the end of her bed, tall, pale, dressed in blue light that shimmered like water. When she blinked, it was gone. A man from Edinburgh heard a voice humming softly near the fireplace. Later, he found an old music box on the mantel, though it had no key. The owners themselves admit the castle has moods. Some nights it sleeps quietly. Others it stirs. They say the ghosts do not mean harm. They simply refuse to be forgotten. Those who stay often leave small offerings before they go. A flower, a coin, a whispered thank you. It is a gentle tradition, an understanding between the living and the dead. And so, Chillingham remains, part museum, part mausoleum, part memory. When the sun sets behind the Northumberland hills, the castle prepares for its nightly transformation. Torches are lit along the outer walls, their flames bending in the wind. The stone gleams with a reddish glow, and the air feels alive again. This is when the ghost tours begin. Visitors gather in the courtyard, their lanterns trembling in their hands. The guide speaks softly, as though the walls are listening. They are told to walk with care, to keep their voices low, and never to mock what they cannot see. The tour winds through the great hall, where portraits seem to follow with their eyes, then through narrow corridors that smell faintly of wax and dust. Every step seems to echo twice, once in the present and once in the past. When the group reaches the dungeon, silence falls. The guide's voice fades as they point toward the instruments of pain, still resting in the shadows. Some people feel faint. Others can barely breathe. There is no sound except the drip of unseen water, and sometimes the faintest whisper. No one is quite sure whether the whisper comes from a person or from the castle itself. Paranormal investigators have spent long nights inside these walls, their equipment flickering with unreadable data. They speak of temperature drops, electromagnetic spikes, and moments when cameras refuse to work, yet what they feel cannot be measured by any device. In the Great Hall, one investigator recorded what sounded like distant chanting, though everyone else heard only silence. Another described seeing a blue mist coiling through the air, forming the faint outline of a child, before vanishing into stone. In the chapel, a woman from a research team felt her shoulder brushed gently by an unseen hand. When she turned, she saw only candlelight, but a single petal from her bouquet had fallen to the floor. They collect readings, analyze patterns, debate theories, but the answers never quite fit. Chillingham seems to resist explanation, as if it enjoys its own mystery. Even skeptics leave whispering to one another in the car park outside, glancing back at the towers that glow faintly against the night sky. No one laughs when the gate closes behind them. What makes Chillingham different is not only the number of ghosts, but the depth of their presence. They do not startle, they linger. The castle feels aware of those who enter it, weighing each visitor quietly, deciding what to show them. Some people hear voices, others see faces in candlelight. A few feel nothing but sadness so deep they weep without knowing why. Guides often speak of guests who return year after year, saying the castle feels almost like an old friend. Dark, yes, but not unkind. Historians say the hauntings are just memory impressed upon matter, energy repeating itself. But those who have walked its corridors at midnight know better. They say Chillingham remembers every story told within its walls, and sometimes it tells one back. It is not a place of horror, but of history that refuses silence. And in that persistence, there is something almost noble. For in Chillingham Castle, death is not an ending, only another chapter whispered through stone. When the last tour ends and the torches gutter low, the castle falls into a quiet unlike any other. Guests who stay overnight speak of this silence as something alive, a breath that moves softly through the halls. The great doors are locked, the courtyard empty, the staff gone home. Only the guests remain. Their footsteps faint against the old stone floors. Some sit by the fire, pretending not to listen for sounds above. Others stand at the windows, watching the fog roll across the grounds like pale smoke. Around midnight the air changes. The warmth of the fire feels distant, replaced by a cool weight that presses on the skin. Many say they hear movement in the corridor, the brush of skirts, the soft creak of a door that was closed only moments before. One visitor swore she saw a figure crossing the hall, dressed in a long gown, pale as frost. It passed through a doorway and vanished into the wall. Another heard a child's voice whisper near the bed, "Please, don't go." No one truly sleeps at Chillingham. They rest, they listen, and they wait for the castle to remember them. Some of the most chilling stories come from those who believed in nothing before they arrived. A man from Leeds laughed at the idea of ghosts when he checked in, but sometime after 2 a.m, his laughter was gone. He had been lying awake, staring at the beams above, when he felt the bed dip slightly, as though someone had sat beside him. The air grew cold. The scent of roses filled the room. Then a voice, faint and clear, whispered, "Mary." He lit the lamp, expecting to see nothing, yet there on the coverlet lay a single white petal. He left the castle at dawn, pale and trembling, never to return. Others tell of hearing soldiers marching in the courtyard long after midnight, of candles lighting themselves, of cold fingers brushing their hands in the dark. Each story differs in detail, but all share the same quiet awe. For even the unbelievers, once they step through those gates, begin to wonder if perhaps some part of history still walks beside us. Those who have stayed long enough speak of a strange peace that comes in the final hours before dawn. The castle seems to soften. The walls breathe slower, as though satisfied that the living have heard its stories once more. Guests rise early, their eyes heavy, their hearts oddly full. They walk through the courtyard as mist curls between the towers. The first birds sing, and for a moment the castle looks almost ordinary, just another grand home in the English countryside. But those who were awake at 3 a.m. know better. They have seen the candlelight flicker where no flame burns. They have heard the sigh behind them when no one else was near. They know that Chillingham never truly sleeps. And as they leave, the heavy gate swings shut with a sound that feels almost like a sigh, almost like farewell. The ghosts do not chase them. They stay, content in the knowledge that someone will return to listen again. Across England, there are many castles said to be haunted, but none carry the same heavy stillness as Chillingham. Perhaps it is the age of the stone. Perhaps it is the suffering once sealed within. Or perhaps it is that the castle seems to want to be remembered. Television crews, journalists, and historians have all walked its halls, searching for proof. They arrive with cameras and instruments. They leave with questions. Every attempt to explain the hauntings ends the same way, with silence and a shiver. On film, strange shapes drift across rooms. Microphones pick up faint breathing, distant knocks, and voices that no one recalls speaking. Yet the castle gives away nothing clearly. It teases, reveals a whisper, then falls still again like something amused by our curiosity. Those who have spent the night say that after a while, they stop looking for ghosts altogether. Instead, they begin to feel that they are the ones being watched, gently, patiently, as though the castle itself studies them in return. And in that gaze, there is something almost human. Over the years, Chillingham has become more than a monument. It is a living chronicle of everything it has endured. Its owners, the Grey family, have restored it with respect for its age and its spirits. Each creaking door, each flickering candle, seems to belong to both the present and the past. Thousands visit each year, drawn by curiosity or courage. Some come hoping for a thrill, others seeking connection. But all leave with the same feeling that they have touched something far older than fear. It is said that the castle holds both beauty and brutality in equal measure, and that is why it endures. It mirrors humanity itself, our longing for glory, our capacity for cruelty, our hope for redemption. To walk through Chillingham is to walk through time, through centuries of love, war, and sorrow woven together like threads in a tapestry. And perhaps that is why its ghosts remain, not to frighten us, but to remind us. Every whisper, every chill, every echo is history refusing to be forgotten. Historians often say that ghosts are simply the residue of memory, but memory is powerful. It binds people to places, emotion to earth, and past to present. If that is true, then Chillingham Castle is not haunted by spirits. It is haunted by remembrance itself. The cries of the tortured, the footsteps of Lady Mary, the laughter of the unseen child. They are not random. They are the castle's language, the way it speaks its truth to anyone willing to listen. When night falls, those voices rise again, not in anger, but in longing. They ask only to be acknowledged, to be heard once more beneath the weight of centuries. And when we listen, truly listen, we become part of that story. The living and the dead share a moment of understanding that time may pass, but presence never truly fades. In that moment, Chillingham ceases to be a ruin of the past and becomes a mirror of our own fragile eternity. Why do we seek out haunted places? Why do we walk willingly into the dark, knowing it might whisper back? Perhaps it is not fear that drives us, but recognition. Somewhere deep within, we know that the stories of the dead are also the stories of the living. We come to places like Chillingham not to see ghosts, but to remember that we too will one day become memory. Each candle we light in these old halls is a small act of defiance against forgetting. Every shiver, every glance over the shoulder, every heartbeat that echoes louder in silence, reminds us that the world is more than what we see. When we feel the brush of unseen air, or catch the faint scent of roses from nowhere, we are not being haunted. We are being acknowledged. The veil between past and present thins, and for a heartbeat, both sides remember each other. That is the true gift of Chillingham Castle. It does not frighten us away from death. It teaches us to listen to it. The people who visit year after year say the castle changes with them. The first time they come for chills, the next for history, and after that for something else entirely. Peace, perhaps, reflection, a strange comfort that grows with every visit. They say the walls seem softer, the air less cold, as if the castle begins to recognize familiar souls returning. The ghosts, they believe, remember kindness. Guests who whisper a quiet thank you before leaving often dream of Chillingham that night, the courtyard silver in moonlight, a window glowing faintly above. And maybe that is the castle's greatest secret. It gives back what it is shown. Fear it, and it will terrify. Respect it, and it will welcome you. Love it, and it might even reveal its gentlest face. In the end, Chillingham Castle is less a house of horrors than a keeper of empathy, a place where even the restless find company, and the living find meaning in the quiet company of the dead. As night fades and the mist drifts down from the moors, the castle stands silent once more, its towers pale against the dawn. The ghosts withdraw, the rooms exhale, and for a few brief hours, the old stones rest. But rest is not the same as forgetting. Chillingham remembers everything, every voice that has passed through its halls, every shiver of awe, every whispered prayer. It keeps them like a library keeps its books, waiting to be read again. The morning sun spills through the narrow windows, painting the dust in gold. The air smells of stone and wax. To those leaving, it feels as though the castle is watching them go, its silence filled with gratitude. They turn for one last look, knowing that what they've experienced will follow them, not as fear, but as a quiet awareness that somewhere the past is still awake. And for those who have truly listened, it will call them back. In the end, Chillingham Castle is not merely a relic of war and sorrow. It is a living archive of what it means to be human. Within its walls are love and loss, cruelty and courage, silence and song, all bound together by time and remembrance. Every stone has listened, every echo carries a story. To walk there is to move through the memories of those who built, wept, prayed, and endured. It is to understand that the line between the living and the dead is thin, a breath, a sigh in the dark. Perhaps that is why the castle endures while others crumble. It was never meant to fade quietly into history. It was built to remember, and because it remembers, it still breathes. The blue boy, Lady Mary, the soldiers, the whispers. They are not curses. They are witnesses, the castle's way of keeping its promises to those who came before. For in the deep hush of Chillingham, every ghost is simply a story that refuses to be forgotten. When evening falls again and the torches flare along the battlements, the castle seems to wake from its brief sleep. The night settles gently over the towers, and the old walls wait for new footsteps, new listeners. Visitors arrive in silence, some smiling, some nervous, all drawn by the same unspoken question: what truly remains after we are gone? They will find their answers in the soft touch of cold air, the faint echo of a sigh, or the flicker of light that moves across a wall when no one else is near. Chillingham speaks in moments, not words, and it speaks to anyone willing to feel rather than see. As the night deepens, the same timeless dance continues. Curiosity and caution, fear and wonder, past and present, intertwined beneath the Northumberland stars. And somewhere within that ancient rhythm, the living and the dead share a single, silent understanding. That remembrance is the truest form of peace. So if you ever find yourself standing before the gates of Chillingham Castle, let the wind touch your face. Listen to the quiet, and remember that history still breathes there. Step gently, for every echo is a voice, every draft a sigh from another time. You may not see the Blue Boy's light, or hear Lady Mary's footsteps, but if you pause long enough, you will feel them, watching kindly from the edge of memory. Because Chillingham does not wish to frighten you, only to be remembered. This has been The Ghosts of Chillingham Castle, a true haunting told softly through time, written for Sleepy Mysteries and narrated by Regina Sage Monroe. If you enjoyed this journey through England's most haunted castle, subscribe for more tales of mystery, memory, and the quiet places where the past still whispers. And I leave you with this thought. Maybe ghosts do not linger because they are trapped, but because we have not yet learned to stop listening.
You've been listening to Sleepy Mysteries.